30 weeks to Madiera, 3-0. Welcome back to the UEA campus and to this most pressing and crucial of times on my journey back to full fettle as a competitive, soon-to-be Masters athlete. And yeah, tonight we need to talk about the competition that's coming up on Sunday, some of the thoughts and preparations for that, and discussions I've had with some of the other athletes and coaches about maybe some difficult decisions to be made about that competition. We also need to talk about the hurdles and my progression in that, because it's something that we have neglected and that we're currently trying to catch up on. And we also need to talk about work stress and dealing effectively with stress. So where are we at? Last week, obviously, I was talking about what was I talking about last week? Oh yeah, done the high jump session, and things are starting to come together. So we're really at a point at the moment where all the events that I'm going to be doing on Sunday could all do with more work, but the one more than all others that needed some work was the hurdles. And you might remember how at the start of this training block, at the start of this 3 months, I said I was going to do 8 decathlon, 8 sprints, half and half. Therefore I could see, well, if I'm dividing my energies equally between these, which is the one that I seem to be performing better on, relatively speaking, therefore to help me decide what to focus on over the summer. But also 4 hurdles sessions, so not as much as the other 2, partly because it needs a bit more work, partly because, like I said, the bar's so high, and partly also because I really quite like it and I think I've got potential to do well in it. It could even be my kind of main event, as I've said, with a lot of work. So technically speaking, I've actually neglected the hurdles, because I did hurdles right at the start. You might remember my video on the 1st of February when I said I'd done like a 60 of the ladies' heights, and I think I just had it in my mind that I was going to be back doing another session every couple of weeks, and it all kind of come together naturally. I did go back, I think the following week or the week after, but by that point I was ill and I had to stop, and that wasn't good, and I've just not been back, partly with illness, but partly because there was just the hurdle sessions often start at 5 and I've just not been able to get away from work in time. And then in the last couple of weeks it's been like the Thursday was the only time I could do this high jump coaching, and then even this week I've had to do pole vault on Tuesday because it was my last chance to do pole vault ahead of Sunday. So the hurdles really aren't all there yet, and in the past I've run the 110 hurdles, I've run the hurdles but taken 6 steps in between instead of the 4 steps, which is like the standard. I've done the 4 steps in between, but just not the full heights. And then tonight, I think technically speaking it's coming, and I'm starting to get the height and the kind of striding in between. But by the time I got to that point, I was just absolutely knackered. By the time I could kind of get the technique down for the first 2 hurdles, it was just like my whole body's, all my joints feel sore. Some like that way that after you've played football all day, or if you've like played a football tournament over the weekend and you get to the Sunday, I feel like that after just like an hour and a half on the track that was mostly rest, to be honest. So that just shows you how ligamentously demanding the hurdles is. And I'm a heavy guy, I'm 90 kilograms, and that weight isn't coming from thick ligaments in my foot, it's coming from other areas. So it's a lot on the joints. So I think some of this ankle prep that I've done has been helpful. I need to do some intensive kind of rehab from tonight and prehab for Sunday. And yeah, just talking to coach at the end, I'm like, right, this is where it's at, and it's the one that I'm at a risk of a DNF. Like if I I turn up to the high jump, I can come in at like 1 metre 40 and make sure I get that, and then, you know, just see what else I can add on there. But if I crash into hurdle and fall over, I can't really just kind of say, can we just start from that again? I think there's only one hurdle race. I don't think there's going to be more than one. So it's really, it's really 60 metres of madness, and the stakes are quite high, to be honest. The stakes are quite high, because if I complete that, this is really nice here. Okay, you can't see any of that, but it's kind of nice stars over the water. If I complete it and I get a time, then it's like, right, you've completed an indoor heptathlon almost, and you can see where you're at, and then it's time to, you know, plan onwards for the multi-events. Whereas if I don't complete it, then we're still in the same position of, okay, there's lots of potential there, but there's still a big question mark over it, and we can't really draw conclusions, and it's back to the drawing board. So as with the high jump, just a little bit of proving myself, a little bit of actually bloody mindedness on the day, I think, just to be like, no, I'm going to do this. I think I actually can. Coach was advising that I maybe don't do it, because if I do injure myself, then we go backwards. And I think there's absolutely wisdom in that, and I need to see what happens on Saturday. Somebody's going to go back on Saturday, so I've done 2 sessions, or really 1.5 hurdle sessions. So in order to complete my 4 I said I was going to do, including the one tonight, I need to do another one on Saturday. And this is actually the first Saturday for a while that I've been in Norwich. It's just been different things. I'm obviously travelling. I've got friends and a distance relationship that keeps me out of town a lot of weekends, and then the weekends that I'm here, every second one of those is actually as working, so I can't be running. Technically I could be running while I'm on call in the hospital, because I don't need to be in all day, but I need to be doing the ward down in the morning. I can't come out and train on a Saturday. So suffice to say, this is going to be my first Saturday training session on the track, so it'd be good to do a run out for that as well, and see how that goes, see what the vibe is there. Training in the morning is going to be nicer. Obviously over the summer I'm going to be doing more track sessions and left strength in the gym. So I've not been in the gym doing powerlifting this week, because I'm essentially tapering down for Sunday, and the heavy squatting that I was doing last Saturday still in my legs even yesterday, to be honest, like 4 or 5 days later it was. So hopefully a bit of super compensation from that with a kind of 7-day rest. But yeah, this is really, I wouldn't say it's touch and go. I'm not going to put that much pressure on myself, but this is a crucial time where I think I've timed things right, and I've managed to juggle a lot of different things, and this week just needs focused intensity on the athletics and allow other things to really take a back seat. Yeah, a good discussion with one of the other senior athletes, who's also a coach, who's not really coaching me in the hurdles, but he was quite encouraging and identifying the fact that you really need to attack the hurdles, and in some ways it's actually easier if you go more all out, which is definitely true. But by the end, when I was going faster at the hurdles, I actually found it easier. There's also a hurdle specific coach that was there prepping for some younger athletes, and he was very encouraging, gave me some technical input, but it didn't advance to say, well, I think you're ready to race, so he kind of kept quiet on that one. So yeah, enough said on the hurdles, that's where it's at. I'll update next week how that all went. And again, it was good to talk to Conrad, who's one of the other athletes. He's actually ranked quite high in the UK in the decathlon. At the moment, he's an under 20 athlete, a student at the university. Really good to have him around, actually, to give me a kind of an idea of what to aim for and a bit of a vision of what the decathlon training involves. He was doing some kind of pyramid of longer distance stuff. It was prepping for the 400 and it looked like a bit of a disgusting session, to be honest. And I was kind of like, right, well, that's what's going to be in store for me in May, June, July, if I'm going to do a decathlon. So yeah, really good to hear some of his experiences of the hurdles as well. It's definitely one of his weaker events, which isn't really saying much, to be honest, given his competence across the board. But yeah, that was quite helpful. Obviously there's this whole aspect where you can, if you have enough power, you can technically hit hurdles, especially towards the end, and still make it through. So we'll head back to the track on Saturday and see where things are at. I'm going to do some stretching in the meantime. An area that's I mentioned that I'm going to talk about just now really quickly is work stress. So in order to free me up for a meeting on the 4th of April, an open meeting at the track here, which is really convenient for me to go to, I've decided to work Friday night overnight or be on call. So that might be very little work or even no work, or very little work, or it might actually potentially be a lot. I might actually be in overnight, so a bit of a risk there. I'll still have a good 24 hours to recover. It's not like I'll be competing the next day, but that's something that I think is a calculated risk that I'm willing to do. Yeah. And what was I going to say? Yeah, I've just got an important meeting on Monday. I get told about that today. There's been one or two things at work is maybe a bit more uncertain about the future, and this is seems to be quite a big meeting, and there's a bit of stress around it and some uncertainty around it. So, yeah, what's my strategy? Obviously, I want to put it out of my mind as much as possible, unless there's things I can do. Two obvious things to do is to do some preparation and check my progress on things, and make sure I'm prepared to some degree for it, but not over prepared for it. Not because I've not been told to prepare anything for it. Talk to some of the support team around in terms of the work and try to get a feel for some of the meetings that they're having and if they're stressed about it or not, and then reach out to my support group as well, other gents that I know, and say, hey, can you support me in this, can you pray for me or whatever that they are able to do. That's going to be really helpful as well. And then once I've taken action, then leave it. That's a real trick for me, is not to have these things going on in my head and round and round and round, and I'm becoming more, my cortisol's going up, but I'm not actually taking action. I feel like when I've actually taken action, things improve, and then I can say, well, I've done whatever I can, and at this point I'm not going to let it affect my life. And it's definitely true that work's taken over too much of my life for the last few years that it really should have, I think, especially coming back to athletics, and I'm reluctant for it to take over too much at this point. So enough said on that. That's my plan of attack. Time to get in and get some calories just now, and yeah, we're now down to week 30. Next week it'll be in the 20s. The halfway point's getting pretty close. We're going to just have to see at the halfway point at that point we really need to be deciding what we're going to specialise in over the summer, but already feeling like a completely different person. Yeah, final point, I was watching a video about Sydney McGlaughlin-Levrone, the 400 metre hurdles, Olympic gold medalist, world champion, world record holder by a chunk. Yeah, just a bit of her mindset and the fact that she doesn't race very much and is very doesn't get involved in like the press and the controversies and stuff, and she's almost distant from the sport. And well, I need to engage with it. That's something I was really dwelling on this week, is being able to disengage from athletics and to be able to say, actually, I'm doing what I can, and it's time to focus on other things, and I have time to do more analysis later. So, peace out.